So what are we avoiding by being busy, by scrolling, by looking at social media, by Netflix, by running around, all of the different ways that we avoid being still and silent? But what is it that we're avoiding? Overall, we're avoiding pain, usually emotional pain. We are getting triggered without probably even realizing it most of the time, and it's bringing up a lot of pain from the past typically, and trauma and all kinds of things in the system that haven't been dealt with. We are running away from facing our fear of death, and we may not even know that we are scared of death. We may think we're totally fine with it or never have thought about it. But we find out through the awakening process that that was hiding out in there somewhere. And so we keep busy to run away from facing that we're getting older, that death is impending. And we are also running away from seeing who we truly are. We're running from the void, we could say it that way. We're running from seeing what really exists here. That the separate self, the person that we thought we were, doesn't actually exist, and that something so much greater, something that's mysterious and perhaps scary, exists. So we're running from awakening. So that's what this talk will be about. Now, the way that we avoid or run away or distract, there's endless options. Then there's getting more options to do that every week. The internet, social media, scrolling, watching videos, all ways that are keeping our attention away from facing how we really feel. It works really well in stopping us from noticing how we feel and from any type of difficult emotion that's arising. We can use so many different distractions to avoid feeling that. Now that's good for survival and for staying sane and for keeping operating in the world. It certainly has a purpose, but it's not helpful when we're talking about awakening. If we're going through a spiritual awakening or we're wanting to work on ourselves, heal, that type of thing, because we start to see pretty early on that we really shouldn't be avoiding all of that stuff, that it actually wants to be dealt with and looked at and faced and felt, and that there's really no benefit from running away from all of that content if we're wanting to become healthier. But we have to go through the pain to do that, which of course is uncomfortable. And so most people are going to do everything they can to avoid feeling how bad they feel. And for some of us, that is truly terrible. If we had a lot of trauma as children, even if our life isn't that hard now, those trauma imprints are in the system, getting triggered all the time by people saying things, by people looking at you a certain way, by your own mind triggering itself, endlessly feeling bad in all kinds of different emotional ways, and truly suffering. And this can be like outright terrible how we feel. So of course we're going to want to do something to try to ease that pain even a little bit. Any kind of distraction will certainly help with that. So if you're going through a very difficult time, if you've just lost someone, if you're totally overwhelmed, it's not a terrible thing to use avoidance strategies to help you to cope during a hard time. It's not. It is a way to survive. But if we're talking about progress as far as awakening and healing, then of course we always need to go into the painful parts and face them and feel them. And so that's what we're being asked to stop avoiding, doing the things that enable us to avoid facing that pain, and instead just go directly towards it, which can be hard, and sometimes we need someone to help us on that journey. But basically start to feel how we're feeling now and start processing all of that backlog of emotional stuck energy that's in the system from childhood and even from past lives. So that's quite hard and quite painful, and more painful for some people than others, certainly. But the more we try to avoid that through whatever means, through ringing up and talking to a friend, through just mindlessly scrolling, through just watching the next show, through constant movement, constant exercise, through listening to podcasts. It doesn't matter what it is that we do, if we are distracting ourselves and we are busy and we have noise, even just a TV left on in the background, it all helps in moving us away from feeling what is really arising. As soon as we stay still and we get quiet, we can start to drop into how we feel, just like that. It only takes a second. And so most people are going to spend their whole life avoiding that little stillness, just like that, because they are avoiding feeling that bad. They don't want to know what's hiding out in there. It's too painful, so they can endure it. If I just stay busy and just keep moving, then I'm not going to be able to access it. So it's helpful for people to survive, but not helpful when it comes to awakening and healing. So that's why it's an entry point to be still and silent. Take away any distraction. All of a sudden, that's why when you meditate, you start to see what is actually in there, and then you have to face it. You have to face it because the distraction's been taken away from you. So it works just that easily. As soon as we put the distraction down, the movement, the noise, and we're still, whatever it is that wants to arise will bubble up. And then we need to know what to do with that, which is a different talk. So avoiding pain is probably the main reason why we are constantly distracting ourselves as a species. We do not want to feel just how bad we feel in there. We don't want to feel that level of shame, because it's not just what's happening right now, in whatever bad situation you're dealing with. Each time something happens, it triggers all of the backlog of energy that hasn't been processed. So that's why we talk about a shame spiral, because it's not just you did something embarrassing just now, that's then triggered all of the different components to do with shame in the system, which can feel overwhelming, which might be where you feel confused, like that thing that happened wasn't that bad. Why am I feeling so terrible? And it's like, yeah, it's because the whole system to do with shame has been activated. And that starts to make sense of why we would want to avoid that. Or perhaps it's fear. Perhaps there was a lot of scary things that happened in childhood that weren't processed and haven't been dealt with and are stuck in the system. And so if someone shouts at you and you get a bit of a scare, or a dog barks at you, all of that fear in the system rises to the surface, whether we realize it or not. And so it compounds, it makes it way worse than what is actually being dealt with. And so it's like, well, of course that seems overwhelming to deal with. And for some people, it might be too much to deal with. And being distracted is the best thing for them. But if you're wanting to progress with awakening, this is why sometimes we need to get a therapist if we have a lot of trauma there, just to help us to get through this stage of being able to access it without it being too much for us, and to help us a little bit with that. Many of us stay busy and distracted because we're scared of dying. We are running away from seeing that truth, and we may not have even ever thought about it or tapped into that fear, but it's hiding very deep within us and is very primal and a part of the organism, the survival instinct, that we'll do anything to survive. But we can access that, but perhaps not have ever really contemplated that we are going to die. And so we can keep busy and distracted and keep trying to get the next thing and more success, and on and on and on it goes, to avoid facing this truth about our mortality. And awakening forces us to face that. It forces us to see that you're going to die. You're going to die. Don't avoid that truth. It wants us to see the truth of everything. The truth of everything that happened to us in the past, the truth about everything about us in relative terms, about being a human, such as you're going to die. 100%, no doubt that is going to happen. Absolutely everybody dies. And to face that and to stop avoiding that and to stop doing things to avoid that. And so you're going to age if you're lucky, and you're going to die. It sounds very morbid, but awakening wants us to face all these truths. And so it enables, it does things in life to bring it to our attention, whether we get a diagnosis that's not good, someone close to us dies, something happens where we start to see the truth of that, and we stop running from it, we stop distracting ourselves from it, we stop trying to stay young forever, and we start to really face that head on of like, I really could die at any moment. We all could. The whole species could. The whole planet could. That is possible. That is possible, and that is one of the things that we are running from as a species, is avoiding that. And many people have never even contemplated their death until they get right to the end and they're forced to face it through a diagnosis, a terminal diagnosis. And for a lot of people, that's the first time they even thought about it. It's like, oh, this is actually happening. But with awakening, it's asking us to face it at whatever age you are, with whatever situation is going on, and see the truth in that you will die. You will die. You've been born and died so many times, and this is going to happen. You're going to die. But also, you are eternal, and what you truly are is not affected by death. And so it may sound kind of morbid initially, and understandable why we're running from this, and are often very terrified of aging and the idea of dying. Some people are outright terrified of death. But that is because they haven't seen the truth of reality. And when you see the truth is that, so what? There's death. But what I am is untouched by that. And so it's actually trying to teach us that realization experientially, that we're eternal and that we're unaffected by death. But the paradox is that, yes, you will die. Face that truth. Don't run from it. Face it head on. And that's why I suggest things like death meditation, that type of thing, to really face that fear and stop avoiding it and running away from it. And then besides avoiding the pain and avoiding the fear of death, we are avoiding awakening, or avoiding seeing what we truly are. And so we will remain distracted and busy and have noise around us to avoid tapping into that. Because again, as soon as we're still and silent, it acts as a portal, a gateway to see what we truly are. Now, if we're going through an awakening and we're committed to this path, that's a great thing, and we'll use that as a tool. But for most people, they're going to avoid that at all costs. And so again, this is intuitive, instinctual, that they don't want to go in that direction. They don't know why. They just stay busy. But this is the reason why. This is the third reason why. So because as soon as we stay still and silent, we all have access to our being. We do. We can access it. And so many people are avoiding touching into that. And I think most people have probably had some experience of tapping into that, whether they know anything about awakening, have heard about it, have any context for it. I think it's quite common to access your essential nature, but perhaps not realize what it actually is. You might just put it down to a weird experience. And so, because it's available to anyone, and we access it through, it could be a spontaneous grace, where it is a gift that is given to us, here's reality, or it could be because we got very quiet and still, and we started to drop into it. And so for some people that will be a wonderful thing and a journey that they will then go on through the awakening process and really enjoy that. But for a lot of people, that's too scary to face that. To face that, the truth about themselves, which is that there's no person there, that there's no separate self there that's doing all of this, that has a life. This is too scary to face the truth of that. And so it's the avoiding the truth that I don't exist as a separate person. So you do exist as whatever you want to call us, God, universe, awareness, all of those nice terms. There is existence here, something does exist, but not as a separate somebody. And as soon as we start to drop into that silence and stop avoiding and distracting, we all have the capability of accessing that. And so for a lot of people, that's too scary. They don't want that. And as soon as they start going in that direction, they need to stay busy and distract themselves again. And so for a lot of people, meditation and silent sitting and even just being still is very difficult. You see, some people can't stay still at all. So these are the 3 reasons why. So here we're really avoiding the void. We're avoiding seeing that we're formless. We're avoiding seeing just how massive we are. We're everything. All of the universes, all of everything. That's overwhelming to see. It's magnificent, but it's overwhelming, perhaps. It can be scary and confronting. So we're avoiding being still because we don't want to see the truth of who we are.